of this dark occult network of mental sorcerers, because that's what they are. They constitute a network of sorcerers working mental sorcery. So you have to understand the dark occult priest class as very ancient master psychologists. This is what I try to explain, especially to listening audiences who may not be very familiar with my work. I try to explain this from the beginning in my work about what the occult really is and what this priest class network of dark occultists who are using this hidden knowledge about the human psyche and the laws of nature to their advantage at everyone else's expense. We have to look at them not as magicians as we would see in Hollywood. That's not the kind of sorcery or magic that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about being able to influence people's minds, not just at an individual level, but they can influence entire societies' minds. These are social engineers of the highest order, and they do this by understanding everything that there is to understand about the deepest recesses of human psychology. They go deep into the human psyche, and they understand all of our hidden motivations and fears. Once they know that, because there's such a knowledge differential, and the average person hasn't studied that for one split second in the course of their entire natural lives, they haven't looked at who they are, they haven't looked at what is deep inside their own psyche and their own subconscious psychological makeup. This priest class are the chess masters who have won every major chess tournament in the world year over year over year when it comes to the chess game of human psychology. And we're the novices. Humanity are the novices that don't even understand how the pieces move on the board. We haven't even shown up to sit down at the game of chess that's being played, and we've already had our ass kicked without even sitting down at the board because we know nothing about the nature of the game. And yet these are masters who know everything about every aspect of the game. And that knowledge differential is what they use to convert to a power differential in the world. They say knowledge is power, but it's not. Knowledge is potential. It's potentiality for anything you want to make of it, including power. But the differential in knowledge is always able to be converted to a differential in power. And that's where we're at because of human ignorance, overwhelming, colossal human ignorance of self and the laws of nature. The beings, the dark and psychotic and psychopathic beings, they don't even have a normal soul. They have a husk of a soul. And all they want to do is fill it with things and control. They want to control other people to make themselves feel somehow alive because they know that they're dead inside in their heart and in their soul. And this psychopathic class, this priest class of beings that is actively controlling and running our world, they are able to do this because the average population is completely ignorant, and they have this knowledge that has been hoarded within their family bloodlines and within their hierarchical network, the structure of this occult network, for tens of thousands of years. That's their birthright. They've been given all that knowledge and all that information about how to manipulate and deceive others because they know how their mind works, and yet the people they're actually manipulating don't know how their mind works. It is an absolute piece of cake. It is child's play for them to do what they're doing, to steer entire societies in one direction or another at their whim. And the only thing that will ever be able to reverse that dynamic in our world is for the average human being and for society, the society of human beings as a whole in the aggregate, to incorporate the deep occult knowledge that this dark priest class has aggregated for themselves and kept to themselves for millennia. The occult and the knowledge that it contains has to be de-occulted out of this priest class by people who are defectors from it and people who truly study and learn what they have, because it is out there in the world. The problem is it is radically misunderstood, and people don't understand the importance of this knowledge or how it is being applied to deceive and manipulate people in the world and therefore to control them. And we have to take this knowledge into ourselves. This is the only solution to level the playing field, because once that knowledge differential gap is closed, then the power differential gap will begin to be closed by humanity. But not one moment until we narrow that knowledge differential. Without doing that, the dynamic of human slavery is going to remain exactly as it is today, and it's going to continue into the future, and it's going to get infinitely worse. And then nature at some point is going to step in because of our refusal to learn truth. You mentioned that my work has been very laborious and there's been a lot of passion put into it. And that's very true. I've done a whole lot of work and I've done it with a lot of passion. But people have to understand this is a labor of love of truth. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to have a dedication to. We don't need to have a dedication to other human beings. The love of truth will certainly benefit other human beings by extension. I've said this many times to people, and people will hear this in a callous way even. I don't do what I do because I love human beings. I don't do this for human beings. I do this because I'm a servant of truth. And that's what people have to come to the awareness of. They have to come up to that level of consciousness. This goes beyond service to self. This goes beyond service to others. This is the highest form of love that exists in creation, and that is service to truth. And unless people get into that modality of consciousness, we're not going to make any headway against this dark. Well, there's 3 institutions that they absolutely had to infiltrate and completely gain the reins of and control from the inside in order to propagate not only false knowledge to the world and get them to believe in things that are not true, but to dissuade people from looking into the necessary information that they must look into to level the playing field. Mm-hmm. And those 3 major institutions were religion, education, and media. Okay, now, of course, they have infiltrated government, but government doesn't try to reach people's eyes and ears. It just makes arbitrary commands that the ruling class says you must obey or we will conduct violence upon you, called laws. That's the strong arm aspect of the whole control system, obviously. Mm-hmm. They get people to simply comply because they are in fear of the physical punishment that will be conducted upon them if they don't comply. And that's called duress and violence, which is always immoral and always wrong. And people do not have the right, so-called, to delegate behavior to someone else that isn't a right for them to conduct upon anybody else. This is the question I destroy anybody's justification for government immediately with pure logic and philosophy, where if anyone can simply reason from first principles, if you don't have a right, if something is wrong for you to do, therefore it's wrong for everyone to do because everyone has the exact same rights because a right is simply an action that does not cause harm to another. You don't have a right to do something to someone else, and therefore no one has that right. No one can tell another person or group, you're allowed to do that thing that causes harm, and we'll magically convert it into a right because we want to, because that's our preference or our whim. We can magically convert a wrongdoing into a right. It can't be done in nature. You can only claim that you can do it. And therefore, I ask people who believe in this concept of government, could you please explain to me how anyone can possess a right through the delegation of something that someone else does not possess themselves? How can a group of people that does not, no individual within that group has the right to do this behavior themselves, delegate someone else or some other group the right to do that? It cannot be done in nature. It is a complete logical fallacy to believe that it can be done in nature. And anybody who thinks that that can be done is lying to themselves. And that's the very first principle of coming out of mind control. The very first principle of coming out of Stockholm Syndrome and coming out of mind control is you have to stop lying to yourself. Because this is what the dark occult ruling class has gotten people to continuously do. This is known as cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance means you continue to tell yourself lies that deep down in your own psyche, in your own subconscious, you know it's total BS and you know it's not true. But you're lying to yourself to stay within your comfort level. You want to tell yourself, oh, this is done for our own benefit or our own protection or because they actually care about society as a whole. No, it's not. You're lying to yourself, and it's done to control and to enslave.